they demanded ransom just for doing their job.
Congress fails to reach an agreement and the government shuts down.
They can't do one of the basic jobs they have to do.
Now hundreds of thousands of employees are without a paycheck, wondering when they'll be able to get back to work.
Now we just hunker down and wait for Congress to do their thing.
The waiting game has begun. The government has now been shut down for 17 hours, and there's no end in sight just yet.
President Obama wants House Republicans to stop fighting the health care law, while House Republicans say Senate Democrats need to negotiate with them. All of this bickering continues as thousands of Americans are now off the job, while the effects of the shutdown are already being felt across the country.
Jeff Goldberg begins our team coverage live from the Capitol tonight. Jeff?
Well, Leon, walking along the Capitol grounds today, you could see people everywhere, politicians, workers, tourists, shaking their heads almost in disbelief that things had actually gotten to this point. Blame is coming from both sides of the aisle, of course, while President Obama is pointing squarely at House Republicans. Appearing Tuesday afternoon in the Rose Garden, surrounded by supporters of the new health care law, President Obama declared this not a government shutdown, but a Republican one.
This Republican shutdown did not have to happen.
The stalemate continues over legislation to fund the federal government and 800,000 of its employees through mid-December. Republicans in the House want the legislation tied to limiting funding for the new health care law. Late Monday night, the House passed a budget bill that would have delayed the individual mandate, which requires Americans to get health insurance. It was quickly rejected by the Democratic-led Senate.
They've shut down the government over an ideological crusade to deny affordable health insurance to millions of Americans. In other words, they demanded ransom just for doing their job.
Republicans, meanwhile, are considering passing bills to reopen parts of the government, including national parks, the VA, and the D.C. government. But they're accusing the president and Democrats of failing to meet them in the middle.
This table is empty on the other side, and we need the Senate Democrats to come join us.
Democratic leaders in Congress finally have their prize, a government shutdown that no one seems to want but them.
Darren Samuelson with Politico says much of this hinges on House Speaker John Boehner and whether he will support a government funding bill not tied to health care.
It certainly would upset the conservative base, so it's a difficult calculation for him to make, but it is one that is sort of on the table. It is continuing to be on the table.
At this point, no major breakthroughs or negotiations scheduled between Democratic and Republican leaders, and therefore there seems to be no end in sight to this shutdown. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we are going to hear from a Virginia senator and a Virginia representative from two different parties, both of whom believe this shutdown should not be happening. Live at the Capitol, Jeff Goldberg, ABC 7 News.